So here we are on my favorite podcast from the hip, where things are real, raw, and refreshing. And I am very excited to have a conversation today with Dr. Brenda. Now, Brenda, how do you pronounce your last name so I get it right?
Oh, my last name is pronounced Uekert.
Uekert, not
I always tell people,
Uekert.
pretend you've
Uekert.
seen a mouse.
Uekert. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I met Brenda just a short few weeks ago because she reached out to me on LinkedIn. And, my mom used to call whenever I'm feeling a little bit too smug about myself, she'd say, get off your high horse. And now I call those now high heel moments. And I definitely, and I have not told you this is brand new info to you, but I definitely had a high heel moment. And the only reason I'm saying is because I'm ashamed of myself. And that's how when I shine a light on my own dark crap, I can kind of get on with the day and I can get on with my life. Anyways. And so when you reached out and you said, oh, Linda, I have no idea what drew you to reach out and say, hi, can we, you connect. And then I'd love to find out more about your speaking and blah, 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 those things. But in my brain, I've been at this my 33rd year of speaking like full-time as a profession. And so then I read a little bit about you, didn't dig at all. I should have. Like I'm an arse. I mean, like I really am an asshole at times, but I thought, oh, okay, because I get asked a lot. I'd like to find out more about what you're doing in speaking and, blah, blah, blah. So the reason I came back with the 5 questions is because it helps me manage the request, first of all. And because I really want professionals like yourself to get really clear on what you need right now versus how do you become successful in the speaking industry? It's just way too high. It's way too big of a question versus what do you need right now? And then I went and did some actual research on you. And I'm like, oh my God, Linda, you're an asshole. Oh God. So that's what I call a high heel moment for me is it was good. I just needed to come back down to earth. And I went, oh my God, we have so much in common.
We do, but I don't see it at all that way because I'm like happy that somebody responds because it's difficult to get a response. And for me to be able to go through and ask you 5 questions, I mean, that to me, that's a privilege. I mean, I really thank you for doing that because a lot of folks, if I'm reaching out, I get nothing. So
Crickets.
yeah. So no, I was very happy to hear back from you.
Well, I think the first thing that totally I said, okay, I've got to get to know you a bit more is that that you're a full-time RV'er. And I want to get to the backstory of that. But as I said to you, I am also, I'm not a full-time RV'er. I am 3 years into it, if you want to call what I do as RVing. But I got really cranked up when I saw, maybe when I turned 60, actually. I'm turning 63 in a month. And I saw the little 10-minute, 15-minute thing on Sisters on the Fly on YouTube and on the one of the travel channels. And I went, oh, I could do that. So I immediately bought myself an old piece of crap, 72 Prowler, went on this crazy journey to renovate, retro, everything, everything in it. I look for anything that's vintage, and I've since bought another one. So now I have 2, one is 72. Yeah. One is 76. And, they look like my husband would say, if you don't look too close, it's pretty cute. So just so I know, and you're sitting right now in your, what do you call it again? Do you have a name for your?
Well, yeah, I call it the Dream Big rig. It's also Goldie 17. So it's got carries 2 names with it.
Ah, and Goldie 17, where did that come from?
Goldie, because this is where I do my business, so it's going to turn into gold, right? This is my gold mine. And 17 was my dad's favorite number, so sometimes I think of him sitting in the passenger seat and how much he would have gotten a big kick out of this. So it's a tribute to him.
Awesome. I love that. I really do. Is your dad still with you?
No, he's not.
No, mine either. And so, yeah, I'm big on all those kinds of things. And mind you, my dad would say, I have more shit than Chinola. That was his favorite thing to say to me. I have too much stuff. But so as I said in the introduction, I mean, you have a PhD. Well, what's your PhD in?
I have a PhD in sociology from Syracuse University. So
Yes.
it's one of those degrees that you have to really work hard to figure out how to apply it.
Well, maybe therein lies the wealth, is that you have to figure out how to apply it. Well, I have a phys ed degree, which is now called a kinesiology degree. That's 40 plus years old. And yeah, how do you apply that? Everything I took, I did nothing. Well, I was kind of aligned, but anyways, I still think every person on the planet needs to go to post-secondary education just for the experience alone and the experience of having different conversations. And there's something about it. And my daughters have just come through it. So I just think, regardless whether you're an engineer or you're or physician or whatever the thing you're going into, there's some gold, definitely, jewels in getting out of the house and trying to figure out how to pay for groceries. When Ichiban soup's $4 for $1, and that's what you live on for 4 years, that kind of stuff. It's important lessons to me.
Well, it's, it opens opportunities, it opens viewpoints. It is about, embracing sort of diverse points of view and realizing that, you thought you had the answer and you don't.
Exactly. Which is the best gift ever when you realize that it's the best gift ever.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about all the topics that you just love talking about, because I'm fascinated with all of them, but just tell me where you're sitting right now. Like, where in North America are you sitting right now?
I am in Mammoth Lakes in, well, I guess Central California. The Mammoth Mountain is hanging over my head here, and there's still snow. So it's
Are you in snow?
Not here, not at my campground. I'm at a little bit of a lower elevation, but if I drive 10 minutes away, a lot of the trails are still closed. There's been just a onslaught of much needed precipitation over the winter, but it's gorgeous. And so I try to stay places for 10 to 14 days and then move on. So I've got almost one more week here.
I saw your documentary that was done. Wow. First of all, and I did, and because I commented on it, beautifully done. Tell me who the person who did the documentary for you or on you.
Yeah, that is Tanya Stumphauser. So she's somebody I met on Facebook years ago and got into this conversation. And I was actually talking to her about maybe doing a speaker reel. And she's like, I really want to work on this artsy project. Will you be my subject? And it is about simple living. It is about, my life is nothing like it was 5 or 6 years ago. It's completely turned upside down in the best way possible.
So let's dig back into that. So PhD, I mean, as I said in the intro, you left your profession feeling burnt out. I've been talking about burnout and exhaustion and overwhelm for most of my career. What was the straw that pushed you off the edge to say, I'm done?
You know what? The straw was a teacup. It was, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you the whole story, but when you deal with so much, there's oftentimes one trigger. And this trigger was a conversation with the boss that inside my head, I realized that nothing is ever going to change. Mm-hmm. I am going to continue to be exhausted, continue to argue for staff, continue to not get it. I'm in an organization that doesn't give a crap about what I do. And it all just
was it in law? Were you in law? I mean, I know that you have background in law.
It was in a court reform. So justice system reform. I worked in domestic violence, elder abuse, exploitation, adult guardianships, really serious subjects.
Topics.
But it was, it was just me. And I realized I couldn't go on. And I had a teacup in my hand, and something in subconsciously, it's like an out-of-body experience, because all of a sudden the teacup ended on the other side of my office. And it's like,
not intact, I'm imagining.
Right. And I'm like, I went to my boss and I said, I just got myself fired. And I did. I headed out on a 2-week business trip, was in San Francisco, Oregon. I bought 2 things. One was an Alcatraz mug with a little prisoner inside the cup because that's how I was feeling. And then I bought these pair of socks that said, I like my job. I like my job. And at the bottom it said, ha ha, just kidding.
Just kid.
And so I was done. I was really done. And I didn't realize how fried out I was until after the
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah. It's, lots. I have dealt, I always say I work with mental health myself. I work with depression. I always say, I never say I suffer from depression, but I have most of my adult life. And I've said this before, similar, where I don't know how bad I'm feeling until I start feeling better. Because that exhaustion and that burnt out fog is just the way it is, that you're firing all the time until I actually take a step back, sometimes with medication, sometimes with exercise, sometimes with both, sometimes with all of that, plus some therapy, and then start to feel, you go, oh, well, this is how I should have been feeling, but I wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, for me, when I was told, you don't have a job, you've been here for 16 and a half years, you're done. And my first thought was, my first feeling was relief. I felt relieved. I'm like, this huge weight just lifted off my shoulders.
Well, if the first thought and feeling is relief, well, obviously right decision. Right.
Yes.
Right decision. Not even know what the next decision is going to be, but that's the right decision. So you leave your profession to become a financial coach and a speaker. And where does that connection, or how does that happen?
Right. Well, the financial coach, so I was laid off when I was 30. My life fell apart when I was 30, and I lived in poverty, abject poverty. And it took me 3.5 years to get my career going. And that was a time of desperation and really hopelessness. Now, this time around, I lose my job, but I had built enough financial freedom so I knew I didn't have to work at McDonald's. I knew that I could do things and take risks that I couldn't do before. And having that sense of financial freedom was turned something that could have been very tragic into an incredible opportunity. And so I thought, what do I want to do? I became a bit of a money nerd. So why don't I help, especially women, financial freedom? So, if they get divorced, the job ends, or they just want a different life, they have the resources to do it. So I'm like, I'm just going to follow my passion, see where it takes me.
Yes, I remember hearing a quote many years ago that and sorry, ladies, if this offends you, but if your husband is your financial plan, you may want to reconsider.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not a financial coach. Have I had a financial coach? Yes. I've been and I tell you this because this is why I'm fascinated about the whole money piece and money piece for women. The most liberating thing I've ever done in my entire adult life, and I've walked the Camino, 880 kilometers, 500 miles on my US listeners, by myself in the snow and rain. I've gone to base camp twice of Everest. I've done some big things. I've traveled the world by myself, all those kinds of things. But the most liberating thing I've ever done is get my head out of my arse when it came to my money, because in my profession, I get paid in big chunks of money. Here's a few thousand here, here's a few thousand. So it wasn't like I was getting an hourly wage. But I was spending as much as I was making. And I remember sitting down, and I know I'm not alone in this. That's why I'm saying this, sitting down one day and saying, okay, I literally still to this day do not know how to open Excel. Spreadsheets don't turn me on like they do for a lot of people. But with the pen and the paper in hand, I just said, okay, took out every bill. What do I owe? How much debt am I in? And I was in more financial debt, me just by myself. And my husband runs a very successful company. So the first place I went was my banker, my business banker. She had no clue what to do with me. I was thinking maybe we're going to do maybe a bit of a amalgamation, a merger, a little something. Nope, not without his signature. I'm like, I've been in business 25 years. Okay. Then I went to actually a financial coach. And him and I swapped because he was doing some speaking. We did a little swap-roo. just to get around, why do I keep, to be honest with you, buying my friends out of guilt because I'm never home. So I make up for it by, let's go for lunch, let's go for dinner, let's go on a treat and I'll pay. I also had guilt because I made more money than most of my sisters, and just a lot of guilt there. And then I went to my CA. So what my CA did is he said, okay, and he looked at it all on my little piece of paper. Okay, we're crashing this. That's going there. He just did the thing, and probably with it. And I sold my expensive vehicle. I bought a piece of crap car. My ego had to get dropped at the door, and I have never since then. Now that's probably 8 years ago now, easy 8. Ever carried a balance on a credit card. I've never. I took away all my overdrafts, because if I can live comfortably in an overdraft, I can live comfortably out of overdraft. It's just a limit that you have.
Yeah. Well,
it's so awe-making.
You have touched on exactly where people have to start is sort of that mindset, the feelings of guilt that we have over money. And then sort of these negative feelings like, money's gonna make me a greedy, bad person. I mean, we have all of these mindsets over money that are actually limiting us. So, I mean, I actually have a quiz, and I have 4 different money personalities. And that money personality can help you figure out tools that are going to work for you. So like, you don't like Excel spreadsheets. There's something called an anti-budget, where all you have to do is, it doesn't matter what categories, you just plop your money into your savings and into your investments, and you use the rest the way you want to. You don't need a spreadsheet. So there are different things that work for different people, and that's what the bankers and oftentimes the financial planners give you, one way and one way only, and it doesn't work with especially creatives. It doesn't work with you if you've got a serious background where, you've watched your parents just use money wastefully, right, and you end up doing the same thing.
You have some trauma around. Yeah. It's anyways, to me, like, again, it's fascinating as women how I literally would, well, I did this on purpose because I didn't understand it. I understand the terminology. I'd be in CA meetings with my husband, because our business, we have 2 businesses and we're a family, and the language, I would literally, it would I'd glaze over, and I just actually would shut down in the meeting because I just couldn't even dig in.
Yeah, I mean, and then the thing is, here's all you need to know: grow your income, cut your expenses, save and invest the difference. That's English. That's simple. People can understand that. They don't, even you throw a word of net worth, most people don't know what that means. We have no education, especially, I mean, at least in the United States, no real education that gets us excited, that makes it fun. I mean, to me, your finances allow you to go towards your dream life. What can be more fun than that? But people, the professionals, often disconnect it, and then they scare you. The sky is falling. We're going to go into a depression next week. Your stocks sell now because they're going to be worth nothing in 2 weeks. It's like, that just pushes even more people away from taking charge.
So tell me about this connection you have between, financial freedom and finding more joy in your life and simple living.
Well,
or simpler living, let's say, maybe simpler living.
Here's the thing that really blew my mind when I started really digging into research on financial independence. There's this movement called FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early. Some don't use the retirement part, but they use the FI part. And
jotting that down, FIRE.
And so, very often if you go visit a financial planner, they'll ask about your income. And you know what? Your income has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't matter. Everything is really based off of your expenses. How much you need is based on how much you spend, not how much you earn. So, I mean, the 2 numbers that always stuck in my head were 16.7 versus 51.2. If I save 10% of my income, I have to work for over 51 years before I hit that financial independence number. where I
Wow.
don't have to work. If I save, if I can live off of half of my income and save and invest the difference, I can be done working. I can be financially independent where work becomes a choice in 16.7 years. Those two
Wow.
numbers just blew me away. And so we have more control over our expenses than our income. And so to me, living simpler is the answer to so many things. It's if when you prioritize and really identify what's important to you, a lot of times you're going to realize that you don't need, I mean, for me, travel. I live a more joyful life now and spend a whole lot less money than I did when I was in the house. And when you prioritize and follow those things that bring you joy, those little dandelion moments, those moments that are really, spark your inner soul.
Yep.
It's not about consuming. It's not about spending more money. It's not about, having the mansion. It's a bit of a counter-revolution idea.
So in my head, I've had a very joyous career. I've been super fortunate and have made a very nice living doing it. And so my conundrum is not so much because I've worked for myself, so I've always had some freedom when I want to work, when I don't want to work, when I want to travel, those kinds of things. This whole idea of when do I actually want to hang up my microphone? I've always thought in this business because, I know you do speaking, you do writing. I mean, you're a great writer. Oh crap. I've always wanted to quit this business because my ego's way too attached to it. I know that's a whole other session in itself. My identity, like through COVID, when it all just like stopped, came a big halt. When I went, oh my gosh, I have way too much identity wrapped up in this thing I do for a living. But I always wanted to quit the business before it quit me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you touched on identity, and that was the biggest change for me. I mean, I left my career, the profession I was in, and then I, worked on becoming a financial coach, and my identity was always wrapped up in what I did. My title, I've got the PhD, and I'm this at this company. And it was really when I took off in the RV, and after like 6 months, I'm like, I have to find myself again. And I really allowed myself the time and space to figure out who I was underneath it all, so that my identity was more wrapped up with who I am deep down inside, and what I do and my actions, than a title or my income. Or it's a big shift to change your identity to your self-identity, not what other people are labeling you.
And okay, in all honesty, because this is the journey I'm in right now, and I'm selfish, and I'm sure that the people listening or watching this on YouTube. How long did that take you? Like when you hit the road?
Yep. Yep. Well, for me, it took about 6 months. I can remember the moment, where I was in Texas, and I thought, you know what, I've crossed this hurdle. I've figured out what I am. I've found this soul underneath. And the other piece is, I don't know that I ever experienced joy. I've experienced happiness, but on the road, I found myself hiking on a trail, been on the trail several times, and I'm just smiling. And I'm out there and I am smiling. I will smile all afternoon, all for hours. I'm like, what's going on?
Oh,
This is so odd. But it really, you allow that inner energy to percolate. And I met a woman in the Virgin Islands years ago, and she's always stuck in my head. An older woman, took off, left her husband because all he wanted to do was sit behind the TV. And what drew me to her was this energy, this glow that I have seldom seen in any other human being. And
mm-hmm.
it's like my whole life, it's like I'm after that glow, that energy that it's like, she was so comfortable in her own skin.
Oh
She
my
was
God.
just
That's life's ultimate
in the
goal.
moment. It's like, I was I was viewing stuff. She was seeing it. She was really immersed in where she was at that moment. And I was lucky enough that I got to have a conversation with her. But years later, that has always stuck in my head. And I always say, your legacy is your energy. That's what we were
Mm,
leaving behind.
that's
She
a
left,
beautiful quote.
I don't know her name, but she left such a mark on me as an aspiration that I want to be that energy. I want to be that life force that people are like, what's she got? She knows the secret to life. That's how I felt about that woman.
Well,
She
I'd say
knows
you,
the secret to
after
life.
seeing that beautiful documentary and since reading lots of things that you write, if you're not there, you're like 2 hairs short of being there. Like you're, yeah, no. So
Yeah.
you are and you, even just again seeing the documentary, which you all have to go and look for it on you. Where can they see it? I know it's on LinkedIn, on your LinkedIn page.
Yeah, yep. Probably the best is my link tree, linktr.ee/ Dr. Brenda U.
Okay,
But I'm building a speaker page, so I'll have it on there.
great,
So,
great. So I have to ask you this one. When I've had lots of what I call leaning into the mirror moments in my life. Leaning into the mirror for me is when things are not comfortable. And because I stand on stages encouraging people to get the best life possible, but on the inside, I'm a complete mess and unraveling. But I know that well enough when I probably am a hypocrite for a while. Then I realize, okay, I can't be a hypocrite anymore. I have to figure this out again. I need to lean in again. So that's one of those moments drove me to go and walk the Camino de Santiago, which is the pilgrimage across northern Spain. Right. And I insisted by myself, completely by myself, with just my backpack. No friends, no tours, no nothing, just me. I researched it. I did all the work. I did all the figuring it out, all that stuff. Didn't research what the weather was going to be like in the month of March, and a few other things. And because I was hoping I'd meet a new friend. I never met a person because nobody walks the Camino that month. And I do alone really well. So this is where I'm sort of leading a long story into my question for you. But, I've been on the road my entire career by myself. I eat by myself lots of times. I sit in lots of restaurants and lots of pubs and lots of theaters. I get on planes. I don't do a whole lot of talking on the plane. I do alone pretty good. But on the Camino, I had never experienced painful loneliness. That's a big first for me. And I was like, whoa, it was overwhelming. So were you ever lonely? Are you ever lonely?
You know what? I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. And to me, the worst situation is to be with a partner or be with somebody and feel lonely. I mean, that is just a worse scenario. Being alone and being lonely are two different things. So there are times, of course, when I question, especially when I started, what am I doing? And I need a mix. So I find that, I've got some friends here that I met in Texas, been visiting with them almost every day, and it gets to be too much, and I need my alone time. Um, I when I got this rig, I mean, you can see it's not a typical rig because it's painted, and I've done a lot of things to make it my home. But I turned the dinette into a home office, and on this desktop, I took a wood burner and burning tool, and I put in a quill, and it says "Be brave." So when I started, that was my word, brave. And I tell people when I started, it was 85% terror, 15% excitement. Now it's 85% excitement and 15% terror. So it is about being brave. I mean, I watched your TEDx video. So I knew that you had hiked in March, which was very, yeah. But it is about, you found those moments, but you overcome those moments and you learn so much more about yourself that when you finish that, when you move into your life, you're always taking part of those experiences with you.
Oh,
It
there's
just helps you grow.
Yeah, there is no question about that. It was just kind of because my personality style, I'd love to know what your personality style is as well as you know yourself. I'm pretty sure you know yourself pretty well. But my personality style is I'm as much extroverted because I can be as out there and outlandish and loud, energetically as anybody. So I'm as much extroverted as I am introverted. And so when I do the, on stage, no problemo, chat up a storm with people in socials, I also need to go and retreat. So I know that when you say I've been visiting, I need to sit down and just be a little bit alone time. I just get reprieve. It re-energizes. So I know that I have to honor that. Let's talk about the process of building your speaking career. For those of you who are listening who are interested in possibly doing this, let's talk about that.
Well, that is where I'm at right now. I'm working on building the speaking career. I began to, really think about the things that I had missed. And one of the things I used to do was speak, but it was always related to, my research, my previous work, adult guardianships, elder exploitation, not the most bubbly of topics, right?
Heavy, yeah.
So I'm actually in the very beginning process, building my website. I've got, I'm moving into the area of workplace well-being because I can talk about burnout and how to address that and how to take action before you throw that tea mug. And I can also talk about, financial wellness programs. So I'm moving into that area. And honestly, my experiences from RVing, I have like 3 incredible stories that make such strong points and are pretty hilarious that I'm like, I can't wait to share
Be able
this
to tell them.
Yeah.
One more thing about being brave, and then I want to hear about at least one of those good stories on the road. And I'll talk about you. Yes. So what COVID did for me is that it gave me permission to, I call it turtle. It gave me permission to retract and retreat. And that became very habitual for me. And so in the last, it's been a year, in the last year of being back, and I know in the US it's longer, but we're still pretty, no gathering. So, but getting back into live events, and I had the pleasure of doing some virtual stuff. Great. I loved it. Loved making a bit of an income. But the first time I was back in front of an audience, it was like, yeah, no, I'm not quitting yet. But this whole retraction thing for me has made me more insecure than I feel like I've been in a long time. And so when you said, be brave, you put that into your table. I actually, at the beginning of this year, 2023, I said, okay, let's be brave again. That's my last slide on a slideshow. We need to find our spark. We need to step into things that scare us, that dare us, that all the things. So that whole bravery thing, I know I've got it, but it's interesting to me because I observe myself all the time. But that whole wanting to retract, I mean, truthfully, I've been on the road, got home late in the weekend. Yesterday, I'm thinking, maybe I should put this off. I mean, this interview we're doing today, maybe I should put it off. That's a part of my head going, I don't know, do I have the jam? Do I have, whatever questioning? And then I'm reading or something going, we're doing this. I mean, so that's just a little teeny, could have we? Yeah, we could have. But that's a part of me, I'll just say for myself, that makes me sometimes want to just pull back and not step into something that maybe I'm a little bit nervous about. And anyway, so the whole bravery thing is, I appreciate you saying that because I think it's a big deal for a lot of people. Because when I ask in the room, like I just asked on Thursday, anybody else feel like they've turtled a lot during COVID? And it's like, yeah, a lot. And what I see mostly it's women who will admit it. But I said, okay, well, it's time to step into some stuff again. So,
yeah. But your self-awareness, I mean, that's the big key. I mean, we know, when you're that little head, that little voice in your head is telling you, I mean, that awareness is just the start. Many people are not aware. They're just out of habit.
Yeah.
Procrastinate, whatever it is.
Yes. I call it the trifecta of mental health, the self-sabotage, self-doubt, and self-shutdown. Those 3 things. So when it comes to stories, and here, as anybody who's ever heard me speak, I have made a career on being a good storyteller. And in doing that, also, as you are, I'm really acutely aware of when I'm watching life or things are happening, I make lots of notes because the life is very quirky. Things happen, they're hilarious. And if you are looking for it, the more it happens. And so stories literally are the only way we connect to each other. I want to know a little bit about you. You want to know a little bit about me. We connect. And that's why I say I was on my high heels there for a little bit, because I wasn't, really looking at the story behind this beautiful woman. I'm just becoming my friend. I just want to get my RV and meet you down somewhere in California. But anyway, so tell me about tell me something that's crazy that's happened, a good story that's happened to you on the road.
Oh, sure. So I'm a planner, and if you're full-time RVer, you've got a plan. You've got to get your everything reserved. And I feel like I have contingency plans, but you know what happens to the best of plans. So I travel with 3 cats, and I had lost one of my cats over a year ago, right before Thanksgiving. I brought in a new cat right before Christmas, and we were on our second adventure. So if you can imagine, it takes some adjusting for the cats to figure out that you're moving and it's really okay. And I pulled into a campground, Davis Bayou Campground, part of the National Seashore, Mississippi. And I pull a Jeep behind my rig. So I go around the cul-de-sac, stop, I unhitch, my Jeep is dead. It's like, okay, when the Jeep is dead, the power brake doesn't come on either. So I'm like unhitching, jumping into the car before it rolls down. Okay, I've stopped the Jeep, and I go back to my rig, got the engine running. I'm just going to back into my campsite. My rig is locked. My door is locked.
Oh, no.
And I thought, no problem, because I've got the key to the coach door. Well, there's an emergency mechanism. So when you lock your doors, you cannot unlock the coach door from outside. I was locked out with the engine running.
Oh, boy.
Because my new cat, Isabella, stepped on the lock key.
Of course.
So I'm locked out. I can see the cat inside, and I get a ride down to the ranger station. The ranger comes up, and she looks at me. She's like, "Yeah, sure, your cat locked you out, right?" And I said, "Yeah, she did. See, she's right in there." And she looked at me and she said, "Well, if the cat locked you out, the cat can let you back in."
Oh.
And I looked at her. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And I just thought, you know what? Maybe she can. So I had my Jeep keys, and I dangled the Jeep keys by the window.
Oh, my God.
Isabella came over, and she rolled the window down low enough for me to reach in and unlock my door.
Oh, my
And so
God.
it was like, for me, like I talk about planning, and sometimes the answer's right in front of you, but somebody else needs to point it out, and you need some help when you're planning these things. But yeah, my cat locked me out of my RV, and she let me back in.
Good God. Okay, just for perspective. So I have a 17-foot Prowler. How long is your rig before you have a Jeep attached to it?
It's 32 feet.
32 feet plus a Jeep.
Yeah, so it's like 50 feet. So there's always a little bit of terror trying to pick the right gas station, because you might know if you pick the wrong gas station, it's like, oh man, because I can't back up. When I have a Jeep behind, I cannot back up. I can only go forward. So yeah, if you make a mistake, you got to unhitch and 50
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I can't back up because I don't know. Well, I can do an 18-point backup, that's it. I mean, seriously, okay, this is terrible. Last year I did my first biggest road trip, which was really just like a 12-hour one way. And again, I hit a gas station and I start reacting like as if I don't even have the thing behind me. And I'm like, so then I didn't get gas there. I'm like, F it. I drove to the next town, which I think I floated in on fumes. I've got to get gas. So, my heart rate's, I'm just, and again, I used to be a brave person, and I almost talked myself out the whole way. I'm going, come on. Like I kept saying, F it, just go home. F it, just fly there. F it, just go home. And I just, okay, keep just a bit more. But the one time I had to back it up, I went to the neighbor's house. And I know, ladies of the planet who are all independent. And I'm like, do you know how to back up a trailer? And anyways, so I literally went on a whole like 5-day, and I know you live doing this daily trip, never had to back it up once. If I actually had to, I got help. And I know I need to learn.
Find a farmer. They'll teach you in about 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. The first time, I know this is, I'm at a campground. I don't have a clue how to get into this spot. And every gentleman, okay, a few dudes, they weren't gentlemen, but a few dudes, everyone comes out. If they aren't helping you, or they want to do it for you. I'm like, I really need to learn. Then they're giving you instruction, or they're just standing with their arms crossed, drinking a beer, going, "This is going to be a good show."
Yeah. I have to admit, it's funny for me because I do this all by myself, and most people are in couples.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I could sit out, my little catio or in my chair and watch the arguments as usually the husband's driving and the woman's trying to signal, and they're all messed up. I mean, I've actually helped. I mean, it is kind of funny. It's like, there's that t-shirt, whatever I said to you while backing up is, we'll forget about it. It
is. Oh my God. Anyways, I think we're kindred sisters. With the love. I mean, yeah. I see myself in my retirement getting more brave. And I've gone on road trips with my husband too. And yes, he does all the things, bangs on things with a hammer, and then it gets fixed. But for those of us who want to get to see your stuff, and I would definitely say get connected on LinkedIn. Look up your speaker bio and invite you in, especially if you're in the southern states. Dr. Brenda's she's around and she has wheels.
Well, it's I'm actually looking at creating a home base in Southern California so that I can have my rig and have a good launching pad to fly out for speaking gigs. So I should be in that site late in the year, maybe early next year. But that is one of the ways that I'm accommodating moving into the speaking arena.
And so how can people get in touch with you or see more things about yourself?
Probably the best way is going to be, I'm a couple of days away from really making this visible, but drbrendaU.com.
drbrendaU.com.
Yep. Since I've got one of those last names that is a good prevention for identity theft, because nobody wants it, but because nobody can spell it. So drbrendaU.com.
Well, what a treat. I'm privileged to have met you, and I look forward to just, continuing the friendship. I mean, I really do.
Well, thank you so much, Linda. And, maybe we should do it'd be kind of fun to do a gig together someday, huh?
No kidding, right?
Yeah.
It would be very fun. Stories from the trails, as we'll call it.
Right.
Tips from the trails.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my word. All right. Well, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being on the show.